Coming up, I feed an engine, literally.
A little bit for you as well.
A new weapon has been unlocked.
Not so little, friend.
And track driving skill sharpening continues.
Good heel and toe.
Welcome back to the track build series featuring Project Cologne, the E46 330i. In the previous episode, we set about swapping in the complete E46 M3 rear end. We overhauled the diff, welded in the reinforcement plates for the rear subframe, replaced rusty brake lines, and removed surface rust, treated it, painted it, and then protected the chassis. And now we are jumping right back in with the rear subframe reassembly.
Here are the powder coated parts. Had them sandblasted and powder coated to matte black. Had a local guy do it, Werner's Pulverbeschichtung. Really good price and really good work. So I'm going to leave the link in the description, as such small businesses deserve to be supported. Here's where I previously damaged the subframe and Valerio skillfully fixed it. Big thanks, man.
For the subframe bushings, we are going with solid alu bushings from Bima World. These are designed to prevent movement of the subframe, which will keep the rear suspension geometry and alignment in check, resulting in improved handling and response while not overly sacrificing ride comfort. Furthermore, solid bushings reduce chassis metal fatigue and structural tearing caused by the constant flex associated with the stock rubber bushings. These are just some of the reasons why newer M models use solid bushings from the factory.
The one that was repaired. Subframe bushings finito.
We are using stock bushings for the diff. This will have the biggest impact on NVH, noise vibration harshness, and I opted against solid bushings here as the car still needs to be usable and somewhat comfy on the road.
Diff bushing done as well. The fuel tank. Need to remove this fuel line so we can replace the rubber part of it, and also the fuel pump. To replace this rubber line, we just need to cut open this crimp here. There we go. Crimp the new one on, and make sure to use stainless steel clamps. One done. You get the idea. Now I'm going to replace the fuel pump. I've never replaced it, and as you can see, there's like a seal or something here. Don't think it was ever replaced. And preventive maintenance is important. Ooh, it popped out. Doesn't look too bad. Look how clean the strainer is. That is very clean. I like it. Brand new OE Continental / Video fuel pump and a brand new gasket. On scale 1 to easy, this was easy. This rubber line here is actually discontinued. I can't buy it brand new from the dealer. And I searched online, and all I can find is some crappy generic fuel lines on eBay, and I know those are gonna rot within a year, so I'm gonna leave this one alone because it's still nice and soft, it has no cracks, and it looks good, and I have no doubt this is gonna last longer than cheap eBay stuff. Fuel tank going back in. I also replaced these rubber lines here. Now get ready to get greasy hair. Clip in all the lines. Clip. A nut. Now the straps. Fuel tank reinstalled. The weather outside is perfect for drifting. I'm gonna replace that thing. Brand new one. New plastic channels for the parking brake cables. Beautiful. New front subframe bolts. Subframe going back in. I was thinking to maybe assemble it on the floor completely, but I think it might be a bit easier if I do it bit by bit on the car. We'll see if I'm gonna regret that later. There it is. Maybe we should have assembled it on the floor and then put it all in. I don't know. There we go. Now it's in. The brace. There are 4 more bolts that go here, but we're gonna do those a bit later because this brace is gonna come out again once we start doing the input shaft seal on the diff. Brand new ATE parking brake cables. By the way, I'm not going in any particular order. And be careful, there's a left side and the right side. They're not the same. The upper wishbone. Brand new hardware. So now I'm at the point where I'm regretting for not doing this on the floor because you can't really put that nut easily now. As this is a rubber bushing, we're going to do the final torque with the car down on the ground and suspension fully loaded.
These are BIMAworld's CNC machined billet aluminum street/track camber arms. They provide increased camber adjustment, improved handling and long-term durability, as instead of a stock soft rubber bushing, they have sealed ball joints. Most of the rear camber arms that I found have open uniball bearings, which aren't exactly suitable for the road, hence why BIMAworld ones are a perfect choice for our build.
Now the retaining nut. And because this is a ball joint, we can torque it to spec now. That way I know what's torqued and what's not torqued. Because you know, I'm gonna get drunk tonight and tomorrow I might not remember. The trailing arm. Powder coater really took his time to mask off all the spots that shouldn't be painted. Really appreciate that. Take a Scotch-Brite and make sure that this is thoroughly clean. Let's start with ball joints. Lemforder quality has gone down the hill a lot, and essentially now I'm only using their parts if it says made in Germany on the box. If it says anything else, it's going back, because I had really bad experiences with bushings and I don't want to do things twice. And in that case, I simply buy original BMW parts and just don't think about it. Yes, they're very expensive, but I don't have time to do things twice. And of course, these ball joints are made in Germany. Ball joints done. For the rear trailing arm bushings, we're going with spherical bearing set from BIMAworld instead of the rubber ones. This is a good upgrade even on a daily car. It's gonna make the rear end feel much more tighter and it's not gonna introduce any noticeable NVH in the rear. Now the cover, apply thread locker on the screws. Unlike the rubber bushing, which you need to torque under a certain angle, this being a ball joint, we can torque it now. Have a brand new bolt and a nut here. And because this is a ball joint, it can move like this. As this here needs to remain paint-free, at the very least we can apply XCP rust blocker, which will protect that from rusting for at least a year or so, maybe even longer. Brand new brake shield. I'm essentially restoring my race car now. Brand new bolts, little screws, everything is brand new. Has to be shiny for the track, you know. OE FAG wheel bearing. Okay, now we need to hold the press conference. the snap ring, the wheel hub. This ought to be fun. Beautiful. Bearing and wheel hub installed. Brand new OE wheel speed sensor with a brand new screw and clips. And this trailing arm is ready to be installed. Just realized the camera was all blurry from the cable grease that we sprayed earlier. So sorry if the picture was a bit blurry before. Should be fine now. The trailing arm. Brand new bolt.
Okay, stay there.
Mark them. Plumb in the wheel speed sensor. Mustn't forget the bracket for the brake hose. Now you can pipe through the parking brake cable. The diff. Say goodbye to your back. I mean, it's not terrible. Okay. I am ready to fight. I think if I chuck in this in there, like that, try to scratch the subframe in the process, that'll be good. Nope, that didn't work. Lift it up some more. Oh, there we go. Pump. Pump, man, quicker. It is in. Brand new bolt. Let's see if I can get the front screw in. Oh, yes, sir. Front diff bolt is a whopping 200 millimeters, and that is specific to the E46 M3 diff. And the rear ones are 20 millimeters and then 90-degree angle, which I don't know how we're gonna do. There is no space for that. Again, also specific for the E46 M3. As I can't get the torque gauge or anything in here for that matter, I'm going to draw a line on the socket here. And this needs to be torqued 90-degree angle. So once that moves to about there, we're gonna call that 90. Slow and steady. All right, that is 90. Don't forget the two caps that go in front of the bolts here and stop water getting in there and rusting out these bolts. And that's the diff installed. The drive shafts, the left one is shorter than the right one. I did put a new clamp on this one that had a zip tie there previously. Okay, let's see. Will I be able? Now I can get the nut on here. I think that'll do it for now, and then we're gonna torque this nut a bit later once the brakes are back on the car. I would like to point out something that was just pointed out to me by a very nice Patreon. This small depression in this output flange cover needs to sit here, 45 degrees from this cover, and then these bolts are torqued to 22 millimeters. So I'm gonna fix that. Just gonna rotate this thing. Like that. And then thread sealer on these two screws here, because this is a through hole. Gonna do the same on the left side, but thank you very much, Jasper. We're gonna torque these once the brakes are back on the car. That way I can lock the drive shaft from spinning. Let's fill up the diff with oil before I forget. Torque the drain plug to 16 millimeters. Liquid moly 75W140, which is the correct spec for an LSD. All right, that's the diff full. Let it drip out, and that'll do it. Might as well do the parking brake shoes. Brand new hardware, of course. So for this, it's best to take a picture for reference when you take this apart, and that way you know how everything goes back together. Now catch the cable with these hooks here and mount this in between the shoes. And now the spring, be sure to wear eye protection because these springs be vicious, man. Yet another vicious spring. You go in now. That's an order! It's in. Parking brake shoes installed. I think we might need to do the shocks now. Get this trailing arm up in the air. Say hello to a very unusual sight, something you haven't seen before in this workbench. Coilovers, specifically Bilstein B16 PSS10 coilovers. Gonna be honest with you, I've never used or installed coilovers in my life, so we're gonna have to learn how to install them right now together. But these are obviously right height adjustable here, and I guess with this. And then also stiffness and rebound with this little knob on the bottom of the shock. So I can drive to the track in the softest setting and then have to lay in gravel and, you know, turn this knob and get it to, I don't know, you can go up to 16, I guess. And also ground control camber plates for the front that I got from BMW. Okay, Brosif, we need the top mount from the old shock. This is the brand new mount that we used a couple of years ago. And this shock is still good, I believe. Yes, yes it is. So first this plate, then the mount, plate, and a brand new nut. Okay, give it a nice good twist. And that's the shock ready. Now the spring. This goes on the bottom, and I think we're gonna start off with the highest setting, which should be like that. And then this is the spring pad on the top. What now? Climb aboard. Can I do this without flipping the car over? I don't know. I kind of need a ladder, don't I? Okay, the car didn't flip over, that's good. Oh, look at that, I'm long enough to do this. Where did I put the nuts? Uh-oh. How do I get out now? Spider-Man! So finger tight, this bolt gets torqued with suspension fully loaded and down on the ground. In order to install the rear strut brace, we need to replace the stock bolts with the supplied ones that are longer. Here's the supplied longer bolt. And now you can see the studs protruding from the chassis mount points. And now we can install Jurkan's beautiful strut brace. I think we can torque these to 77 Newton meters as well. Tighten it until we start seeing stars. Perfect. And there you have it. Beautiful. Now we're going to adjust the parking brake cable, and the first thing you want to do is tighten this cable in the cabin to the point where it's slightly loose and touching the handle, and then when you do 2 clicks, it's tight. By turning this cog here, we're going to spread the parking brake shoes and thus adjust the parking brake. You see that now it's spreading the shoes. For the rear brake discs, brakeshop.com is sending me the same thing that we have in the front, which are StopTech slotted rotors, but it's a special order. It's going to take about 5 weeks to get them. So in the meantime, we are going to run old rotors that came with the subframe. I measured them and they're actually still within spec, even though they have a slight lip. But first, brake paste or brake hub paste, apply it only to the lip, not on the flat surface of the hub. 2 brand new screws. Now I'm going to spread the shoes to the point where we have a slight drag. Now I'm going to pull the handbrake 2 clicks. And now with 2 clicks, I can't turn the rotor, so that's too much. Back it out a little bit. See, 1 click, still a bit too much. Now we have a slight drag. And when I lower the handbrake, the rotor is spinning freely. And that's the handbrake adjusted. Going to temporarily install the caliper bracket so we can torque this axle nut. This is still not fully dry. We'll come back to the brakes a bit later. They're still drying. Now I'm going to replace the diff output shaft seal. So first we need to support the diff, get the cross member off, and then get the nut off. This nut here doesn't have a specific torque. It's set based on preload, which means we have to mark its position and put it back in the exact same place, because if you over tighten it, then you can have too much preload and that can wear out the bearings in the diff. So this is very crucial. So I'm going to take a chisel and mark the shaft and the nut. That'll do it. And also mark it with a marker. First we need to dig out the locking collar. Now we can undo the nut. We need to counterhold this somehow. There is a specific tool for this, which of course I don't have. So let's see if this is gonna work. Ah, it did. So now we need to count the turns. 1, 2, 3, about 9.5. I think I said output shaft seal. It's input shaft seal. Oh, that was lucky. I thought I was gonna struggle with this. But you can see it was already leaking. Note the position of the seal. As you can see, it sits flush with the diff housing. Now you're gonna drill a small hole. Start a self-tapping screw. Oh, that failed. Come on now. It's really solidly rusted in there. There it is. Now clean thoroughly. To aid the installation of the new seal, I'm gonna apply just a little bit of diff oil here. New seal, and there's a special tool to install it, which of course I don't have. Again. Bob's your uncle. That's perfect. Clean phalange. And I'll get the nut going. 9, 8, 7, 1. Now I need to do the final twist. A little bit more. And now it's perfect. Exactly where it was before. So we didn't change the preload. The brace. Mustn't forget the new lock washer. So push it all the way in. And as we did that, the tabs are now bent in place and this nut absolutely cannot move. New short shifter. After doing a bit of research and also talking to Phil from BMW World, I got this one from them. This is Rogue Engineering short shifter. Should feel great, so let's install it and find out. First, we gotta get the old one out. Somehow, there it is. Let's see how we're gonna assemble this. I see. These are like solid bushings. First, we need to install this. We gotta make sure the tabs are locked in place. Grease. Can transfer over the bushing. And finally, the boot. Slide it over. So the bend of the shifter goes towards the rear of the car. Okay, install the bushings. I think we are missing some parts here. I hope you can see this, but Rogue supplied only 2 bushings instead of 4, so we don't have an inner bushing here. And that means that this is having far too much play. Moves left to right quite a lot. So I think I'm gonna put the stock bushings in because those are wider. Let's give that a shot. Stock bushings going in. Yep, stock is the answer. And no slop. Clip that in. Okay, the boot is on. Brake paste. First, triple wave washer, then a white washer, and then slide it through and get the clip on. And that's your bit. Let's go in the car and test it. Oh man, that's beautiful. So much shorter than before. I like it. It's approved. Oh wow, that feels fantastic. And I'm not even pressing in the clutch. Beautiful. Look how short that is. Before, that throw was much longer. Quite happy with that. This is the E46 M3 prop shaft that I picked up used for 100 euros, which seems like a good deal, but it does need a bit of love. Needs a new center shaft bearing and constant velocity Jonathan. So let's knock that out. Let's first take care of the Jonathan. The boot is actually torn. There's a circlip here that we need to remove. Okay. Break the clamp. And now we can go to smackdown. That's Jonathan removed. So the whole reason I'm replacing this is this boot is really torn. You can't replace it separately. Here's the new one. Pretty, isn't it? This is the new clamp. There you go. Make sure that clicks in, which it did. And that's the new Jonathan installed. Clamp to clamp. Okay. The clamp was sitting a bit loose and the boot was retracting, so I pulled the boot all the way out and then moved the clamp, and now it seems to be somewhat firmly in place. It's not as tight as I would like it to be, but I don't think this is gonna go anywhere. And now the center shaft bearing, the old bolt. That's the old bearing removed, pretty shot. Here's the new one. There's a little bit of rust here that I want to remove. So once the changes sound, you know it's seated. The cover that acts as a washer as well. And then we have a brand new washer and the bolt. So line up the marks. Yeah, thread the bolt in. And now give it a nice, good and tight. That's it. The flex joint, aka guibo, make sure the arrow is pointing towards the flange. Like that. The grease. Just make sure there's plenty of grease in there. Brand new gasket. And now the prop shaft can go in. There we go. The center shaft bearing, the E46 M3 version doesn't use butyl tape here, and TS doesn't say anything about a preload, but I'm still going to do it, so I'm gonna push the CSB about 2-3 millimeters towards the front of the car. The exhaust and the heat shields, I'm gonna do that off camera. Powder coated M3 sway bar. I'm gonna use the M3 sway bar in the front as well, and then eventually I'm going to upgrade to H&R. First I want to run the stock one and see how the car feels. Then I can upgrade to H&R, which is thicker, and I can feel the difference, you know. Assembly aid. According to the repair manual, you need to rotate this now about 93 degrees, which is something like that. There you go. Brand new bushings. Now I'm going to quickly replace the fuel filter. Brand new fuel lines. Upgraded control arm bushings from BMW. This is forged aluminum and Delrin bushings. They are track focused and specifically designed to improve turning and brake stability. Can't wait how these behave because the rubber ones flex quite a lot and it doesn't feel great on the track. Need to get the old bushing out. And then these should just slide on.
I ended up having quite a lot of knocking and snapping noise from these bushings, so I went back and applied PTFE grease, which completely cured that, and now they are dead silent.
Guess who doesn't know how to drift, but surely is gonna have the shiniest brakes on the track? This guy. We have Hawk performance pads that I got from brakeshop.com, and in case you also need brake parts, performance brake parts, you can use code M539 at the checkout on the website and get 5% off. Then we have all brand new hardware and stainless steel brake lines.
In the next episode, we'll also upgrade the front brakes to M3 to match the rears.
These are reinforced guide pin bushings from BMW. Caps. The brake line. Good and twist. Springalicious. Gotta hook up this line here and then it's time to do the dreadful task of bleeding the brakes. All right, bleeding the stupid brakes. The front struts and bolt the caliper, bungee rope, the sway bar link, Limforder sway bar links. Still good after about 20,000 kilometers. The steering knuckle bolt. Then we can get the special tool from Hazit to spread the knuckle. And because this car has M Sport control arms, it can clear the shock. Just like that. The only thing we need from the old strut is the upper spring pad, which was brand new 22,000 kilometers ago. Should have bought a new one, but I forgot, okay? I love my Hazard spring compressor. Oh, I was really strong back then. Oh, there. For a minute there, I thought Incredible Hulk worked on the car, but no, it's just me. And the E90 iX top mount, that's in perfect condition. So, just need this. By the way, these conies feel great for daily driving, really good. Bilstein! You have a mark here, it says L. That needs to line up with the middle of the steering knuckle, exactly in the middle. It's gonna be a bit easier if we draw a line like that. All right, first we need to compress the spring to strut through. We are starting with the highest setting in the front as well. And these are our camber plates. Put the spring pad on, washer, and the nut. Now, ein guten Twist. That'll do it. Now line up the spring, man. Let go of my coilover. Mr. Coilover going in. Make sure you orient this camber plate correctly. Ah, yes, we'll set it to 0 for the start. Okay. Yeah. Get the crap in the air. We didn't a name for this machine. The transmission jack. And that's the strut sitting fully in the steering knuckle. And now you can rotate the strut and make sure that the L is in the middle of the steering knuckle, just like that. And then take this off. I gotta say, coilover installation, pretty damn easy. If If they had torque wrench Olympics, I'd participate. E46 M3 sway bar. Finally, Jurkan's strut brace, which is super easy to mount. 4 bolts. All right, let's see how low it sits now. Okay, the rear is stupid high. The front is nice. We'll need to adjust the rear coilover for sure. All right, let's push the car back and forth and then see if the suspension is gonna settle. And then I need to reinstall the seats. The rear end is really, really high. Okay, so I want to adjust the height of the rear end, and the supply tool, unfortunately, can't get this job done because you can only do 1 full turn and then the tool is hitting the chassis and you can't turn it anymore, which means I have to remove the coilover and adjust it on the table. So I'm gonna do that for both sides and hopefully I get the right height correctly. I don't know what I'm doing, okay? Just spent about 13 years messing around with the right height, and we have about 33 millimeters all around. I measured from the center of the wheel cap until the highest point in the wheel arch. For now, this is totally fine. We can finally torque down the bushings and then the car can get wheel alignment. Now we need to preload the suspension and torque the shock bolt and the upper wishbone bushing at right height. So I have the front end supported. So measuring 33 millimeters from the center of the wheel cap, that's 35.5, a bit more. And we're there. That's the right height and we can torque those bolts. And then for the wishbone bushing, I'm gonna go with good and tight because I can't get the torque wrench in there. Now I can torque the wheels. What's next? Just went for a quick test drive in heavy rain, and now I'm changing the diff oil and the engine oil, but I wanted to show you this, how effective cable grease from liquid moly, aka cavity wax, is. Look at that, it's simply repelling the water and protecting the chassis of the car beautifully. And if you compare it here, for example, this here is uncoated. I haven't applied cable grease here, it's just factory undercoating, and you can see that it's just soaking up that water, while here it's repelling the water. This is especially important in winter because this means that the salt from the road is not going to penetrate the chassis and rust out your car. So I highly recommend this stuff if you drive your car in winter and if you're dealing with heavily salty roads like we do in Germany.
Now, one important upgrade with which we can monitor the health of the car. This is Gauge.S, which was provided to me by a subscriber in Patreon, Sork from the UK. This awesome little gizmo connects to the CAN bus of the car, but can also talk to various sensors and aftermarket modules and show values and graphs on the display. For example, the oil pressure and the oil temperature, which is a must on a track car. On top of that, you can log the data, say the entire lap of the track, which you can analyze later, which is so cool and helpful.
The first step, remove the center air vent. Now I need to remove the fins, whichever one you want, the left one or the right one. I'm gonna do the right one because this is where I usually keep my phone. So gently bend them, might be able to save them. Okay. Everything removed, and now we'll need to drill a hole in the vent so we can run the wires. So this is gonna live here, and then we're gonna have wires running through here. Now we need to remove the cluster because we'll need to run some wires from the cluster connector to the Gauge.S. Now I need to tap 5 wires that go from the Gauge.S to the black connector of the cluster. Oh God, the factory tape is disgusting. It's so sticky. All right, wire by wire, I'm gonna solder them in. All right, let's plug everything in. First, let's do the GPS, then the power. And I also ran the wires for the oil pressure switch. Look at that. M539, that is so cool. Now I'm gonna button this up and then we're gonna take a closer look and see how this thing works and what exactly it shows. I barely started using this thing and I already adore it. Sork, what a fantastic job you've done here. This takes all of the parameters of the car and it's infinitely configurable and you can display whatever you want here. So I have it set up like this: oil pressure, oil temp, coolant, intake temp, speed from the GPS, battery voltage, radiator temp, ignition and fuel. But you can do so much more. For example, you can economy, so fuel consumption, trip 1, engine speed, engine load, mass airflow sensor, lambda sensors, vanos, throttle position sensor, all of it, everything. And you can slide through different menus, essentially. You can have 6 things displayed with the graph, or 2. That's the oil pressure and oil temp. You can have 2 things, 6 things, just 1 thing. So this is the one that I configured. And when you install this device, which is super simple to do, you get all of this minus the oil pressure. For that, you need to install an actual sensor, which I've already done. You install it in the place of the banjo bolt for the vanos line and then run wiring inside of the car through the firewall next to the glove box. And to control this, to switch through different menus and settings, you use the cruise control buttons. So plus and minus is back and forth, and then the top one to set the cruise is like OK, and depending how long you hold it, or if you triple press it, then you can slide through the menus. And then once you press the cruise control button to activate the cruise control, it's no longer going to control this and it's just going to be cruise control mode. Huge thank you to Sorek. He was a massive help. He had a lot of patience with me to help me install this thing and explain it how it works. So I'm going to leave the link to his website in the description. And if you're tracking your car, even for daily driving, this is awesome because it's fully customizable. I mean, what's not to love? This is one of the coolest things I've seen someone develop for an old platform like this. Sorek, you're an absolute legend.
As this mighty 330i will live in higher RPMs of the track for the majority of the time, I wanted to upgrade the vibration damper, aka the crank pulley. As we briefly discussed in the previous episode, the M54 engine isn't internally well balanced for the track use, and likes to vibrate things off such as the oil pump nut and piston oil squirters. The stock vibration damper is especially poorly balanced from the factory, so we are going to upgrade it with a metal jacket harmonic damper that I bought from Ross Performance from the land down under. At around 700 euros, it's not exactly cheap, but certainly a worthy long-term investment.
This is going to be fun. This crank bolt, it's torqued to 410 Newton meters, so it's it's pretty tight. Have this special tool to counterhold the crank and then undo the bolt. Pretty sure I'm gonna need a second person for this, but let's see. Should clip in. Yeah, for example, like that. Think I can do this myself? I don't think so. The rusty pipe. Okay, let's see. No. Gonna go find someone else to hold this thing and then get another pipe here and then. You hold this one and I try to undo it here. All right, something will break. I don't know, something is happening. Yes.
It's okay.
It's loose. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Here it is. It's out. It wasn't that bad. The second part of the tool to extract the pulley. Aha. It's coming out. There it is. You can see how the tool grabs the pulley and takes it out. All right, let's see if we need to replace the front main seal. Oh yeah, that's dry, like completely dry. I think I'm gonna leave that alone. The crank seal, I was thinking to replace it, but as you can see, it's completely dry. Definitely not leaking, so I think it's better to leave it as it is, because I don't want to remove the radiator, drain the coolant, and mess around with all of that stuff. I can always come back to this a bit later. The factory tool is not gonna work with this pulley. The holes don't line up and this is not sitting correctly. Instead, we're gonna deploy a rusty pipe. I drilled 2 holes here. And we're gonna get 2 bolts, one here and another one here, and hope that this doesn't snap and it's strong enough to hold it like that while we torque the nut. Per the instructions, we're going to apply a bit of anti-seize on the crank. Now I can get the damper on. Update, the hole diameter on the new dumper was actually slightly off. It was by 0.05 millimeters smaller than the crank snout, and instructions did say that might happen because they leave this on the lower side on purpose, because not all of the cranks are the same depending on the machining tolerance from the factory. And in that case, they recommended to hone this bore slightly, which is exactly what I did, and now it's a snug fit. You don't want to get it too loose because then it can lead to a crank snout failure, and you don't want to get it too tight because then it can't fit. Now I'm at the position where I can just slide it on and it's a snug fit. So let's do this. There you go. It just slid on, which is good. And you can see that it doesn't have play, which is very important. Brand new bolt. Okay, let's see if my creation is going to work here. On a scale 1 to stupid, how stupid is this? I have a feeling that these bolts are going to snap. Say hello to my not so little friend. This, frankly, a weapon can torque from 300 to 800 newton-meters, and we need 410 for that bolt. Big thanks to Philip for sending this beautiful hazard torque wrench. Let's first get it in position. It's working, but I need a second person. So you gotta push this one towards me, and I gotta push that way. Click! There we go. Well, I bent the bolts, but it clicked, yeah. It's torqued. Perfect, thank you very much. That was a great help. Where's my Käsestange? How is this gonna work now when it's bent to high heavens? Remind me to order these bolts just higher grade for when I need to remove this next time. So yeah, this one is just slightly bent. All right, now it's just a matter of putting the belts back on, making sure that everything is aligned, and then we can start the car and see it go boom. Need a vacuum cleaner, we have a bit of rust from the pipe there. Why am I eating and recording at the same time? I don't know. Now I'm gonna start it, you watch it blow up. How we looking? Good looking? The instructions did say to bring up the revs up to 4,000 RPM and just make sure that everything looks good. And I gotta say that looks spot on. Okay, let it warm up a little bit and then we're gonna give it a couple of revs. In the meantime, I'm gonna eat something sweet. Some sort of Swedish treat. Schweden Streusel or something like that I got in German bakery. Homemade, of course. A little bit for you as well. I don't feel any vibrations whatsoever. I'm gonna call it good. I'm going to quickly replace the fuel injectors. All right. These are the brand new injectors that I installed on Project Rotwall and then removed them when we installed the supercharger because we went with different fuel injectors. So now these are gonna live on Project Cologne. Beautiful. Need to replace the yellowed out inner taillight. That's the brand new original inner taillight installed. Finally, the badge. This car is now officially registered as 330i, so we gotta make it official on the back as well. It was actually pretty easy to do the inspection. All you have to do is take the papers from the donor car to the tooth inspection, and besides the engine, the drivetrain, you have to transfer over the brakes and the exhaust. Then they can inspect the car and get you a new inspection. Dental floss. Dun, dun, dun. Da, 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 da. Beautiful. 330i. Yes, sir.
I also purchased much needed Recaro Pole Position seats and seat adapters which didn't arrive in time, so I scrambled and borrowed one for the driver's seat from a friend in order to be able to use them on the track.
All right, we're at the Nürburgring. This is the last day of the season, November 12th. The track is open until 4:30, I believe. Now it's 12:30, so I'm gonna try and do a few laps. I've covered around 200 kilometers with the car. I've done initial wheel alignment. Ooh, there's an E60 M5. Same color as mine. But anyway, let's see how it goes. This first lap, I'm gonna take it easily because the track is damp, the weather is pretty terrible. So this Rogue Engineering shifter is by far the best shifter I ever experienced in my life. And it's not sponsored or anything like that. I bought this with my own money and the shifter feel is so freaking good. It is ridiculous. It should have been like this from the factory. It's very short shifts, but very crisp and precise. It's just click, click. So last time I was here with the E46, a few of you criticized me on my driving panache because I was essentially flying all over the car, and I failed to mention that the stock seat is actually terrible on the racetrack. So I wasn't as much using the steering wheel to steer as I was holding myself in the seat, which is why my hands were all over the place. With the Recaros, it should be much better now. Ooh, the oil temp is already at 100 Celsius. Yeah, there's stuff in the trunk flying. The one thing is quite evident immediately. The upgraded control arm bushings, the Delrin ones, they are miles better than the stock ones, because when you jab the brake pedal with the stock ones, the steering wheel just wants to jump left and right, and with these bushings the steering wheel is just planted firm in place. And another thing, the car feels a lot quicker. You know why? Because of the M3 diff. Before we had 3.15 gear ratio, now we have 3.62, which means I can't speed that much on the Autobahn, but on the track it feels freaking fantastic. $115 oil temp. Yep, we're going to need an oil cooler. That's one lap done. I gotta tidy up stuff in the trunk because it's flying all over the place and it's driving me nuts. The stuff that was rattling in the trunk, that was this. The front strut brace from Cages. Same guy that made this beautiful rear strut brace. And now I'm going to quickly mount this one, go back on the track and see if I can tell the difference, how the front end feels. There it is installed, super simple, couple of bolts and it's in place. I think I turned it the right way around, but I can never get comfortable with this part of the track. I don't know when to brake. Oh, yellow flag. Oh yeah, we have mud. So much better. I can actually steer the car now. So I have much higher RPMs here up this hill now than I did before because of the different gear ratio. I'm still finding heel and towing a bit tricky on this car. The front end does feel a lot stiffer and better in the corners now with the strut bar. 120 degrees Celsius oil temp. All right, the car feels infinitely better on the track now compared to the last time I was here with the stock suspension. I can take the corners much faster, much planted. The car is not swimming all over the place. The B16s are set to 7, setting number 7. 1 is actually quite good for the roads. I could daily drive this. I mean, it's not as soft as before, but it's absolutely acceptable for road use. And then when I'm on the track, switch it up. So the biggest thing for me is the shifter by far. I love it so much. It should have come from the factory like this. I mean, look at this action. It's just beautiful click, click action. And the control arm bushings, perfect for brake stability. The steering wheel is no longer jumping left and right. And honestly, everything that I've done on this car, I wouldn't say that this car is unbearable to drive on the road. It's still good. You put the coilovers in the softest setting, and this is quite good for the journey to the track, which is exactly what I wanted for the beginning. I didn't want a full race car, just track capable car that I can drive to the track, do a few laps, learn how to drive, go back home. Project Cologne doing well. As far as the clunkiness from the rear, from the solid bushings, there aren't any, because we left stock bushings for the diff. Everything else just feels great, you know? It doesn't feel like your kidneys are gonna fall out. I gotta stop doing that. I instinctively want to hold my hand on the shifter, which is no bueno.
And here you can see brilliant Gauge.S at work. Unfortunately, I only logged this one lap, which was littered with yellow flags, but you can see how powerful this little thing is. You can match the exact data logs with the timestamp of the video and get all of these parameters that you see on the screen now. Incredibly cool and something I'll be using often in the future.
Okay, I'm not liking this. Every lap I've done so far, there's been a yellow flag. Someone went off the road or something. As I said, the track is pretty damp. Hence why the traction control is on. I can't get comfortable with heel and toeing in this car. I don't know why. I can do it easily in the M5s. Up the hill we go. Don't do that. Keep your hands on the steering wheel. Yeah, oil temp 126, coolant temp 86, radiator temp 92. Next on the list, aluminium radiator from CSF and oil cooler. Definitely an oil cooler. Ah, that's a bummer. Traction control is going mad now. I think I'm pushing the car harder. Another thing that I have ready for the car as well is H&R sway bars, which should help with the body roll, because I can still feel too much body roll in the car with the stock M3 sway bars. Obviously a lot better than before, but room for improvement. All right, going for the 9th lap of the day, and I really need to turn the traction control off. You should see the color of the rear. rotors, it's pretty bad. But in this weather, when the track is wet and damp, and given how many accidents I've just seen on the track, I'm not gonna do it. Alpha 156 GTA, I believe. It's a nice car. Too bad it's front wheel drive. Oil temp 125. Oh man, he just hooks. Oh, that's a proper entry into carousel. .30 oil temp, pretty nuts. Coolant temp 88, radiator 92, so that's okay. Next time I come back and it's dry, I'm turning the traction control off, okay? Now let's see what happens. By then I'm gonna have lots of drift trainings and hopefully learn car control, so if I lose the rear end I can catch it. I think I can do it now as well, but I don't want to take that risk. That was a good heel and toe. I'm gonna set the brakes on fire. Good heel and toe. Finally getting used to it. There we go. 10 laps completed. That was fantastically fun. Can't wait for the spring to come to do this a lot more. We'll be back with better sway bars and most importantly, an oil cooler. And I think I said something else, which I can't remember at this very moment. But yeah, a few other upgrades here and there. As far as the power of the car goes, I don't think I need more for now. I just need to learn how to drive on the track first. And then eventually I can go for more power by putting different exhaust on the car and different cams. Oh yeah, car did great. The next thing for the car is the drift event on Friday.
And that's a falafel wrap. I mean, a normal wrap. In just 3 episodes, we went from a stock 325i with a rod knock to a very fun track-capable E46. We'll continue with this project come springtime. The ring reopens in March, usually, and do the aforementioned upgrades. I hope that you're finding this track project series enjoyable. The next episode will be the much-anticipated Project Frankfurt, the E92 M3 engine reassembly. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.